afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this workshop on project labor agreements by the Grossmont Community College District Board of Trustees. What we're planning to do is we'll have 20 minutes from each side. There's a list already of people that have requested to speak on that. And then we'll turn it over to the board for questions. And then, depending on how much time we have, we'll go back to additional comments and questions. So, Chester, would you like to get us started?
I'd be happy to welcome everybody. I will call on the group that is speaking in support of the project labor agreement, and I would ask Jim Mailer, our president of the AFT, Guilds Local 1931.
Thank you, Board, Chancellor. I'd like to introduce our speakers for today in reverse order of their appearance. So Ricardo Ochoa, he's the attorney for the AFT Guild as well as the building trades. Tom Lemon, the business manager for the building trades. Murtaza Baktumusa, who is the secretary treasurer of the Middle Class Taxpayers Association. Scott Barnett, former San Diego Taxpayers Association executive director and former board of trustees for the San Diego Unified School District. And our first speaker will be Cherie Cabral, who is the California Construction Labor Management Trust executive director. Come on, Cherie.
Good afternoon, close to good evening, members of the board, staff. I think there's a PowerPoint presentation somewhere up there. So, wait for a moment, I'll let you should have that. In the meantime, I'll introduce myself. My name is Cherie Cabral. I work for the California State Construction LMCT, which is Labor Management Trust, which is a coalition of business and organized labor within the building and construction trades. Our management side takes into account some large contractors like Bechtel and a number of others. I do statewide work for them. I'm also a former elected official, a former city council member from up in Northern California. So I've sat where you're sitting, so with that I will say that I appreciate the job that each one of you do and how difficult and trying at times it can be, and how much information you are constantly inundated with when you go through the process of decision making. So for the purposes of this evening, basically what we're here discussing before you is a community hiring agreement relative to your proposition ballot measure B for Grossmont Community College District. And we're going to go through a PowerPoint presentation. I know you guys have received a lot of information, so I'm not going to belabor you with huge amounts of details. Hopefully just a good overview that will give you a foundation for some questions if you have any. Baby clicker. Let's see if I can work it. So, community hiring agreements enable local hiring, which is also known as local workforce development, and help manage complex construction projects efficiently. And sometimes it's not so much the individual construction projects, it's the totality. And in your case, you guys have a bond measure which has a fairly large totality of construction projects, some more complicated than others. They're also known as project labor agreements, community workforce agreements, project stabilization agreements, construction career initiatives, construction career policies, local hiring agreements. They have a number of faces, all designed basically to meet the needs of what a public agency has. For this purpose, we'll call them a community hiring agreement or PLA. That's their most common name as they were originated in the 1930s. Community hiring agreements are a type of a workforce contract that's used in public and private sectors. A workforce contract because they are entirely geared towards the conditions of the workforce on the job site, not your contractors, but your workforce. So it's qualifications and requirements for the people who are actually wielding the tools and building your project, not the contractors that you're contracted with. CHAs ensure that workers are trained, skilled, and qualified, so we're looking at what their training is, their background is, how qualified they are to function in the position for what they are doing. Are they an electrician? Are they a member of the plumbers and pipe fitters? Are they an iron worker? Are they a carpenter? And how much training have they had relative to that? They set goals for hiring local workers, and we'll talk about why that's important. They set targets for securing local business participation, which is a little bit different than governing the terms and conditions of who your contractors are, but more where they come from. And they create career opportunities for entry-level workers, also known as how to funnel people into your apprenticeship programs. So to get your youth that come through your community college districts and through the school districts that feed into your CCD, how you get them into well-paying, well-trained jobs. Community hiring agreements promote transparency, certainty, and accountability. Certainty relative to establishing rules, procedures, and project-specific standards up front. Transparency relative to ensuring that projects are meeting the goals and they're managed efficiently. And I want to note that the goals that are set are goals that are not set by the workforce. They're goals that are set by you as a governing board in cooperation and through negotiation with the local building trades councils. And accountability through holding all parties accountable for meeting the agreed upon standards, the goals, and the project management practices that are laid forth in the agreements. They are good for communities, they're good for taxpayers, and good for businesses. Helmets to hard hats is one of the foundational elements of all CHAs or project labor agreements. They're a community hiring agreement that creates opportunities for veterans by connecting highly skilled men and women coming out of the armed forces into construction careers. And since 2007, there's been a placement of over 6,000 retiring out military veterans. The majority of those actually have disability status. And why I think this is important is helmets to hard hats is a required inclusion in all PLAs or CHAs. The program is run by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and a number of years back, actually when the recession hit and the Department of Veterans Affairs ran out of their funding, the National Building Trades stepped forward and decided that this project and this program was so vastly important to the social fabric of our communities and returning veterans that they actually provide now the funding for making sure this program works. So it is administered in whole by the Department of Veterans Affairs, but it is covered financially through building and construction trades. So this is the only way that you can deal with placement of veterans. It's the only legal mechanism that exists, and it is required through all PLAs or CHAs. It keeps your local tax dollars in the community by creating jobs for local workers and investing in career development. And I think it's really important to know, this is the former city council member in me, that money generated from wages has an economic development multiplier of 2.5, which means that when you pay somebody their wages, that money then subsequently changes hands 12 times. So those wages get paid to somebody else through buying cars and generating a job, or buying groceries and generating a job, buying a home, whatever else it may be. It expands opportunities for local workers and businesses by increasing access to family supporting jobs and career training. So I think that's really important. It's not just paying somebody a job, it's paying somebody a job that they can live off of, build a family, and create a place in their community long-term, not just on a short-term basis. And it establishes a career path for your local workers by providing on-the-job training and allowing local workers to pursue, again, a family-supporting career. So you're actually building your community as you go forward. It delivers projects on time and on budget by setting clear expectations and standards upfront through the document. This means that construction bids are more accurate and it keeps your projects on schedule. So what we want to emphasize is that through a CHA, your projects are built using the lowest responsible bidder. That's still in place unless you choose to utilize a lease-leaseback methodology or some other form of a delivery method, which is really up to you. It ensures quality and reduces your overall costs by requiring that workers are properly trained and highly skilled. Projects are built well the first time with fewer costly change orders. It's your number one cost overrun on construction projects is change orders. So it's built using a streamlined, highly skilled workforce. And it avoids costly delays by enabling better workforce coordination, and your projects are managed efficiently and completed on time. So we call it build it once, build it right. We don't want to go back and do it again. No tearing open walls, no starting over. A CHA or a project labor agreement requires fair and open competition. Projects are awarded through a fair, open, and competitive process, whether you're a union or a non-union contractor. In fact, SB 922, which was passed in 2011, codified into state law and into Public Contract Code Section 2500 not only the permissibility to use a project labor agreement or something like a CHA, but also stated that, and I quote, It permits all qualified contractors and subcontractors to bid for and be awarded work on the project without regard to whether or not they are otherwise parties to a collective bargaining agreement. Also known as, you may not write anything into a PLA on a public project that says you may not participate or you cannot be chosen simply because of a union or non-union affiliation. Point blank, pure and simple. It provides easy access to qualified workers by creating a pool of well-trained, highly qualified workers and giving all contractors access to that flexible pool of diverse labor. And it manages complex projects efficiently. As a labor management tool, the CHA or the PLA has received widespread praise in public and private sectors. It's been used in public and private construction projects throughout a long period of time, since the 1930s, in fact, on varying sizes and complexity of projects. And I think it's really important to note that since 2008, the use of project labor agreements in K-12 and CCD construction has increased by over 500%. This is a very good example of how a public agency is taking a tool that came out of the private sector and utilizing those efficiencies for the good of the taxpayer and the good of the local community. A case study, which we'll hear more about in a few moments, from San Diego Unified School District. Under their project labor agreement, which was implemented in 2008 on their original $2.1 billion bond, the number of workers that came from economically disadvantaged communities rose by 67%. And the share of workers that came from within the school district itself, the very specific zip codes for the school district, increased by 33%. In fact, it was successful enough that in 2011, the district chose to extend the PLA out to all future projects. The San Diego Central Court Building, which I'm sure some of you can see the steel going up downtown San Diego, is a pilot project with California Judicial Council. It's a $450 million project that was bid out in October of 2013 and received 150 responsive bids. It came in $3 million below the assessed budget that the Judicial Council had set. $63 million worth of the contracts, or 21% of the total subcontracts, are actually non-union. And $28 million in those subcontracts has gone to small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority or disabled veterans businesses. And the Rudolph and Slutton report that was submitted to the Judicial Council in March of 2014 states that there's been a minimal amount of corrections in the field, and the ability to handle the unique challenges of a project of this magnitude may be attributed to personnel that come from a skilled and trained workforce, and the project has had more than 100,000 hours of work to date and 328 days with no reportable injuries or incidences. That's a pretty good statistic. LA Unified School District has $27 billion underneath of PLAs, and 48% of those total construction dollars go to small and disadvantaged businesses. That's a statistic from 2003 to 2011. And you can kind of see the numbers there. I won't belabor them. You can see the number of contracts that were issued out. Right here in your own community, you have San Diego Unified School District, the Central Courthouse, Southwestern Community College District, San Diego County Water Authority, Chula Vista Elementary School District, and actually just last week, Sweetwater Union High School District voted as well. I want to point out a couple of things that aren't up here just because I do think that they are important. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that statistically, when we have looked at the reports that have come in across the board, approximately 60% of the contracts under a project labor agreement or a CHA go out to non-union contracts. That statistic has been consistent statewide, regardless of the size of the bond program it has been applied to. And the other thing I think I should mention, just on a political note, is I heard on a radio show on my way here from the airport earlier today that some of you fine individuals were getting ready to be served with notices of recall, courtesy of the opposition side. I want to let each and every one of you know that that has been threatened since 2008 to numerous elected officials. There has not been one single elected official in the state of California who has lost their seat in a subsequent election or been recalled simply because they cast a vote in favor of a project labor agreement or a CHA, nor has there been one future bond that has been run in a community college district or K-12 district in the state of California since 2008 that has lost simply because a prior bond was put under project labor agreement. So thank you for your support of the working men and women and the families of those folks here in San Diego County and the people that live here in your community. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Tom Lemon, San Diego Building Trades. Appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you today a little bit about PLAs. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I know a thing or two about PLAs. I've negotiated since I've been part of Building Trades about $16 billion worth of PLAs with different agencies and private developers. Prior to that, I sat on other boards that negotiated several $billion there also. What I really want to say to you today that I think is probably, to me, one of the most important things about project labor agreements is the opportunities that they create. And when I talk about opportunities, I'm really talking about, you know, you're going to build stuff, you've got bond money, you've got projects in the queue, you're going to have projects in the future, you're going to have future bonds in the future. When we talk about projects and we just look at a building, they're going to be a building. But when we talk about buildings that were built with project labor agreements, you're affecting your community in a way that is incredibly positive. First of all, you're taking action to do projects that are financially responsible for the voters who paid for them. Then you're actually creating opportunities for the voters who actually are going to pay the bond to work on the bond. And then what's important to me, because I've been doing this 33 years, is that initial opportunity, the opportunity to enter into an apprenticeship with multiple contractors that you can always go from one job to the next and create a career out of what is really a transient job, is construction. That's what labor does. That's what we're bringing to you today. Is a building with skilled workforce, coordination of crafts, the best trained, safest workforce there is, and all that other stuff. So I know 20 minutes goes fast and kind of watching the clock, so I'm going to leave it at that and make some additional comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Barnett. It's a pleasure to be before you today. I've been in government and local politics for about 30 years on the Del Mar Council, elected in '84. I served as the head of the San Diego County Taxpayer Association for 7 years. I ran the San Diego Lincoln Club, and I have been a registered Republican all those years. I was elected to the San Diego School Board in 2010. And certainly I was the only Republican on that board and was often the voice expressing concerns about the finances and the focus, especially on bond projects. When I was at the San Diego Taxpayers Association, we started looking at project labor agreements over 20 years ago. And I will tell you, at that time, our board and I was very skeptical of them. What we did initially is we commissioned an independent study. And at that point, there was only the Water Authority had really just started doing its first project labor agreement. We used a San Diego State professor, and the results of those were pretty much non-clear. And based on those results, the Taxpayers Association said, we're not taking a position. We were neutral. Jump ahead to 2008 on the Prop S, which was passed by San Diego Unified. I was a consultant on that. When the board approved the PLA, I was still very skeptical. So when I was elected in 2010 to the San Diego School Board, I urged my colleagues to say, let's do an independent analysis of Proposition S, specifically on the project labor agreement. And I convinced my board to hire the same consultant the taxpayers had used a number of years before. And that study, which I will leave you a copy of, basically came out with some very significant and important results. It made it clear that based on the projects that were done, that there were No change in general project costs between the PLA and the non-PLA projects. The number of bidders still averaged about 6. There were and have been quite a number of non-union bidding contracts, about 60% was mentioned, and in fact, Pershing Middle attending Unified was just completed by a non-union contractor. So comments about saying that unions can't bid and construct is just not true. Lastly, the issue I was concerned about was management administration of the PLA. The district actually saved $1 million in administrative costs because of certain responsibilities taken over by the state. There's one person at the district, the Director of Fiscal Controls and Information Systems, who already exists, who administers the PLA and does other activities as well. Believe me, these are issues that I focus on in great detail. Anyhow, I wanted to come out today and say, despite my skepticism, I believe in evidence over ideology. And I'm confident that PLAs, if properly managed bonds, and this is a well-managed bond, as is Senate Unified, can be very effective, and urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume that means 20 minutes.
If I may indulge you for just 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Because there was one point that has been raised by the opponents. My name is Ricardo Ochoa. As Jim Mailer mentioned, I'm the attorney for the AFT Guild, also for the building trades. We know that there's been a lot of loose talk about how there was a promise made to the community that there wouldn't be a PLA. And I just want to call your attention to the actual resolution for Prop V, which said at section 3J that the district will promote fair and open competition for all district construction projects so that contractors and workers, whether union or non-union, are treated equally in the bidding and awarding of district construction contracts. As has already been pointed out by Sherry Cabral, Public Contract Code section 2500 says that a public entity may only enter into a PLA if the agreement permits all qualified contractors to bid and be awarded the project without regard to whether they're otherwise parties to a collective bargaining agreement. And the other point that was not made in the PowerPoint is that the Public Contract Code also has a provision that says that the project labor agreement must prohibit discrimination based on membership in a labor organization. So to be clear, the commitment that this board made in section 3J of the resolution is a commitment that is codified in state law as Public Contract Code 2500, and it is something that a PLA that you negotiate with us would have specific provisions within it to guarantee. Thank you.
Certainly. At this time, I would like to invite Teresa Andrews, who is the interim president and CEO of the San Diego Taxpayers Association. Afternoon.
Scott, I don't think we've ever met. My name is Teresa Andrews, and I am the interim president and CEO for the San Diego County Taxpayers Association. Over our 70-year history, SDCTA has been involved in taking positions, whether supportive or not, on publicly financed bonds. By endorsing the school bond, SDCTA recommends to residents of the school district that they agree to pay higher property taxes in order to finance the construction of school facilities. Our endorsement plays a crucial role in informing residents that the district is fully prepared to deliver on its promises, and that residents should put a portion of their income towards the proposed school facilities projects. SDCTA has developed bond support criteria, which requires school districts to submit evidence of their sufficient preparation, which is here, and specifically list their promises to voters in ballot language. Grossmont-Cuyamaca College District came to SDCTA in 2012 requesting our endorsement of a $398 million bond. The application was analyzed by SDCTA staff, and the Grossmont-Cuyamaca College District was granted endorsement by our organization as this district adopted all of our best practice policies via resolution on August 7, 2012. The passage of Prop 39 has allowed districts to finance facility projects through tax increases by a 55% approval threshold as opposed to 2/3. In return for a lower threshold, taxpayers receive a promise of accountability through ballot specificity and requirements for citizen oversight of bond programs. Proposition B barely passed the minimum threshold with a 58.22% of the vote. As part of our endorsement for Proposition B, Rosemont-Cuyamaca College District made a promise to not only SDCTA, but to taxpayers via Resolution 13004, which we've heard on several different times, so I won't go through and read it again, except for the key pieces of fair, open competition, all contractors and workers, and treated equally. This is the promise that was made to taxpayers by the district. The breaking of this promise is what's being considered today. What is fair and open competition? It is a just, open, and equitable competition between business competitors. Fair and open competition provides value to taxpayers. What will a project labor agreement offer taxpayers? A reduced number of bidders, increased construction costs due to a lack of competition, and unfair rules for non-union local workers. Now I'd like to bring up a local contractor to share a bit of his testimony.
How you doing? I'm a contractor here in the East County, and up until the last month or so, I hadn't participated in any PLA projects. So we decided to bid one and see what it would be like. So we bid a San Diego Unified job about 3 weeks ago. We got one sub bid on that job for the structural steel. It was worth $958,000, and that's only one bid. That's not competition. On a normal job without a PLA, we'd get 3 or 4 bids easy on that type of work. So these PLAs do restrict competitions, and subs don't want to participate. In fact, one union subcontractor told our estimator that they didn't want to participate in the job because they don't like the fighting between the trades that happens and all that stuff, because it makes it more of a hassle for them. But the bigger thing for us is our open shop workers, and they are not treated equal in these PLAs. They have to give their pension, their health money that I pay them now on non-PLA jobs and give them health insurance and pension. They have to now give that to the union, yet they never best. And the union knows they'll never best. They'll never receive this benefit. So I have to pay them double to give them the benefit. So the workers are not treated, I don't care what they say, the open shop workers are not treated equal, and that's what I'm here to oppose the PLA mostly for, is the open shop workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So what is SDCTA's promise to the Grossmont-Cuyamaca Community College District? Should the board move forward with a resolution to start negotiations for a PLA, SDCTA's board is prepared and willing to publicly revoke or support Proposition B. Additionally, since Proposition B did not address the total needs of the district, this decision will be factored into our endorsement for any future bond measures. I would like to now introduce Katie Hansen and Pete Salcido with the Associated Builders and Contractors.
I appreciated if the audience would hold their applause. You're holding up the speakers, and let's take your time to wait.
Hello, my name is Katie Hansen. I'm the Director of Community Affairs with ABC Apprenticeship Training Trust. I'm here to share with you how PLAs discriminate against tomorrow's workers, apprentices. Apprentices are not treated equally under a PLA. Project labor agreements discriminate against non-union apprentices by preventing them access to work on construction projects. This is not equal treatment. For the second year in a row, Manpower has listed skilled trades workers as the #1 in-demand profession in the United States. That is also true here in San Diego. ABC and AGC are doing our part to address this shortage through our state and federally approved apprenticeship training programs. Apprentices in our programs must complete a certain number of jobs, or a certain number of hours of on-the-job training in addition to classroom instruction prior to completing the program. Public projects and construction projects like those here at Grossmont-Cuyamaca are an important source of work for our men and women to complete these programs.
Hello, good afternoon. We're not going to read all these trades, but the point of this slide is to show you that many of the trades within the state of California and certainly locally are represented by the AGC and ABC collectively. Between our two programs, every program in the state, union, non-union, every apprenticeship program is certified, approved by the state of California and the Federal Department of Labor. And so there might be some talk behind closed doors, well, those programs, they aren't quality programs, we have the best. They're quality programs, and so do we. And they're governed, the oversight is primarily by the state of California for all apprenticeship programs. As far as training facilities, both of our programs, we've invested millions of dollars into our training facilities. We invite you to come. Slow down this process. You're going fast. They brought in their big guns today. It sounds very good, very smooth. Come and take a look. We have quality programs. We have lots of trainings, the highest technology. I want you to come and take a look at that and verify that for yourself.
Our apprentices are local. Combined, the Merit Shop trains over 800 apprentices in all of those different trades you just saw here in San Diego County. Many of those men and women live in your district. We are local hire, as we mentioned earlier. These men and women live in San Diego and they work in San Diego.
Again, you hear a lot of rhetoric. What do I listen to? Both sides sound pretty good. One of the points I wanted to point out was about wages. And you might have heard some comments that, well, those open shop apprentices, they don't get paid the same wage. And that's not true. The state of California regulates apprentice wages for all apprentices. It's mandated, it's governed, there are contract compliance, there's DLSE, Labor Commissioner's Office, all apprentices earn the same thing. And it's a full-time wage. They're going to school at night, they're working full-time. These are real people. And one of the messages we want to get across to all of you is if you pass this PLA, you're going to exclude lots of local apprentices that are in our programs. There's no counter argument to that. Completely discriminates and excludes against them.
EBC and AGC are committed to promoting careers in construction. We have a record of success here in San Diego. We participate in outreach in local high school districts, community college districts, career fairs, and military career fairs in San Diego. We actively support the National Association for Women in Construction through their Summer Camp for Girls, Construction Tech High School, North County Trade Tech Academy, JA BizTown through the Construction Storefront, and Skills USA. Building that pipeline for future apprentices is important to both of our programs. Men and women in our apprenticeship programs have successful careers. They are hired locally and work locally in San Diego. They want to work on construction projects in their neighborhoods and be a part of building their community. I would like to introduce to you an apprentice who has gone through the AGC program and is currently enrolled in ABC. His name is Daniel Big Boy, and he would like to share his story.
Hello, I'm Daniel Big Boy. I'm a second-year apprentice with the Association of Builders and Contractors. I'm an electrician. I've worked in the construction industry for 12 years. As an electrical apprentice in the ABC Apprenticeship Training Program, I work full-time for Helix Electric. I attend class 2 nights a week, earning college credits through the San Diego City College. I'm paid prevailing wage and receive full family medical, dental, and vision benefits. I'm a homeowner in Santee, and as a San Diego native, I have a passion for my community as well as my trade. As the married father of 3 and with another child on the way, it's imperative that I work in a location such as Grossmont Cuyamaca College and remain local. I am the sole provider for my family, and I need my job as an apprentice to provide for my family. I need to work locally as I attend night school twice a week. Working locally allows me to be at home with my children and help them with their homework and see them to bed. Working locally also allows me to participate in my children's daily lives. PLAs specifically exclude non-union apprentices like me from working on projects. Local jobs should mean local jobs for everyone, not just union apprentices. As a resident of Santee in the Grossmont Cuyamaca district, I want the right to work in these projects in your district. A project labor agreement will prevent me from doing so. Thank you for letting me share my story.
So as Mr. Big Boy just explained to you, I don't think you're going to hear anything today that's going to be contrary. Project labor agreements, they explicitly discriminate against open shop apprentices. They will not be able to work on these projects. There's language in there that refers to joint labor management programs. That refers to union programs. And so it's not subject to negotiations. Everything is subject to negotiations. This one is not. You're not going to find a PLA in California where open shop apprentices are allowed to work. You're going to discriminate by not allowing them to work. Local guys in your jurisdiction.
Just in closing, all apprentices deserve the right to work on your projects. Please don't exclude the hardworking men and women in our apprenticeship programs from the right to work at Grossman Queen Mac. And now I'd like to introduce Eric Kristen with CFPC.
Got it coming up? All right. Well, while we're waiting for that, my name is Eric Kristen. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Fair Employment in Construction, and this is what happens when you threaten people's livelihoods, when you explicitly and implicitly discriminate against workers who don't happen to belong to the group that financed your elections. This is the type of result that you get. This is why so few school districts in California, of which there are over 1,200 K through higher ed entities, over 600 bonds passed in the last 15 years, and exactly 32 have passed project labor agreements. Why so few? Well, we'll explain why here, as well as what you've heard from the previous speakers. What is a PLA? It's really simple. All the rhetoric that you heard in the opening presentation can all be done in whatever agreement. I happen to be glad that they have to run different euphemisms because we give them PLA such bad names. Whatever they want to call them, all of it can be accomplished under any agreement that you want. But really the heart of a project labor agreement are these four provisions. Without these, the unions would have no interest in a project labor agreement because it would give them no unfair advantage. All workers must pay union dues and fees. There's $1,000 out of your first paycheck that's just gone to be contributed to an organization that you have no desire to join, no desire to be a part of, but because you're working under a PLA, it's lost to you. All workers must be hired through a union hiring hall, and contractors are limited to 6 core workers. It's interesting that when you hear proponents talk about all the work that non-union contractors are getting, what you really have are core workers that are limited to 6, but where are the rest of the workers coming from? They're coming from the union hiring hall. So while there may be a non-union contractor that did the job, like a Berg Electric on the San Diego courthouse, they are not self-performing any of the work. It's being done by union employees because that's the purpose of a project labor agreement. Only union apprentices can work. Again, the explicit discrimination there is without refute. Scott Barnett won't talk to you about it because he can't justify it. In the San Diego Unified School District project labor agreement, non-union apprentices cannot work. So those that are graduating from those programs do not have the right to work on projects which many of them are helping to pay for. It's outrageous. All workers must pay into union benefit packages. This is perhaps the most egregious aspect, and there are a lot of them, of a PLA. You have to pay over $20 an hour off your paycheck, goes into a union benefit package you'll never benefit from because of vesting requirements. What are the union vesting requirements as an electrician? Judging by the experienced and depth of knowledge that you have in the construction industry, which is exactly none, I would anticipate you would know that answer. It's a significant amount of years, 5 to 10 years, just to get your pension plan or get your health benefits, none of which these people that are working under that are non-union will ever vest in unless they stay in the union. What that means for a worker is exactly this. This is what it means for a worker, how much he'll lose annually under a project labor agreement. He'll go from $63.07 for an electrician down to $50.47. You are actually stealing with the project labor agreement over $20 an hour from that worker's paycheck that's lost to a benefit package he'll never benefit from because he has one already established with his company, as is required by law when you're working on a public works project. But under a PLA, they have to pay into union health welfare employee plan. Please explain to me how in your negotiations this provision is in a PLA, and it always is, because AFL-CIO has to sign off on these, and this is always a provision that's in a PLA. That's over $26,000 annually that worker will lose. That's all a PLA is about, those 4 provisions. Everything else is rhetoric. Who are these provisions aimed at? Very simple. The percentage of the industry, over 85%, that chooses to wake up on a daily basis and go to work in a union-free environment. That's their choice. That's the market. This is not the 1930s. I know that is difficult for some people to get over. It never will be again. It is just a different world out there. It's not the 1930s when you had PLAs on the Hoover Dam when 99% of the construction workforce was unionized. As frustrating as that is, that does not give license to people to go out and discriminate against workers because they choose to belong to a group who does not support them financially. But that is who a project labor agreement is directed towards. Project labor agreements are opposed by everybody in the industry, other than the unions, who again constitute about 15% of the construction workforce. The National Black Chamber of Commerce, the Bay Area Black Contractors, the Asian American Contractors Association, you name it, they're all opposed to it. You should investigate this. You may think that having a 60-minute discussion on an issue where your paradigm will shift in how you negotiate and bid projects is sufficient. I say it is wholly inadequate and embarrassing. You need to thoroughly investigate this and discuss this, something like Sonoma County did, where they had a year-long process investigating project labor agreements. 43 editorials in California have come out opposed to PLAs. You'd think that with all the editorials that have come out on PLAs, at least one would come out in favor of PLAs. All of them have come out opposed. The people are opposed to them. This is the most important and something you need to consider. The County of San Diego had a vote on project labor agreements. Over 70% voted to ban them. The City of San Diego had a vote in 2012, June, on project labor agreement. 58% of the voters voted to ban them. The people have spoken on PLAs. These are your constituents. PLAs are a record of failure. I could spend hours alone just on the records of failure under a PLA, but I'm just going to focus on a couple. The Los Angeles Community College District, a 7-part front-page series on the failures of that project labor agreement. Clock towers built upside down that were lean, air-conditioned units put in the wrong buildings. It was such a catastrophe that the Los Angeles Times ran a 7-part series on the front page about the failures of that school district. That's what can happen under a PLA. PLAs guarantee nothing. There's failures under them as there are on non-PLA projects. Rancho Capano High School, just recently, there was an estimate of $42 to $45 million on that project. It came in at over $58 million. This is just in the last few months. The school just opened. Research that project and how that PLA worked out for them. The staff was asked to find out why the staggering cost overruns. They listed as the #1 reason the project labor agreement. Record of failure continues. I'll leave this with you. You have this. My time is limited. What the studies say. The most significant study ever done on PLAs, over 550 projects in California looked at, peer-reviewed by the USC School of Business, found a 13 to 15% cost increase associated with project labor agreements. It's not a surprise when you force non-union workers to have to pay into plans that are best in your, you get fewer bidders, as you heard from a contractor here who won bigger projects with the PLA. Fewer bidders, increased costs. The most comprehensive study ever done on project labor agreements by National University found a 13 to 15% cost increase. So with that, and I'll take that 90 seconds that the previous gentleman went over and finish with my comments, what you'll find, a minute and a half, what you'll find is that project labor agreements are a solution in search of a problem you don't have. And I would challenge all of you that are considering this and trying to ram this through with as little discussion as possible to actually try and answer these questions, considering the construction background that none of you have. Have you visited these non-union construction firms and their training and apprenticeship training shops to find out exactly what these men and women are being trained in? Perhaps they're not worthy of being included under project labor agreements and deserve to be discriminated against. But have you visited the AGC or the ABC or the Western Electrical Contractors Association to find out if, in fact, these are quality programs? No, you have not. Go and do that. Go and visit them. Hold off on your vote and actually educate yourself on this versus listen to people who are ideological soulmates, but who, at the end of the day, simply want to make it more difficult for union-free workers to get work using bond monies that they, as taxpayers, are paying for. These are egregious, discriminatory, wasteful agreements which is why so few people who are in your position have ever voted to put one into place, and they deserve the proper time necessary to investigate them. Thank you for your time.
Return it back to the board now and ask if any have any questions of any speakers. Greg, you want to start?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I'm not going to call names, but anybody that would like to speak to some of the claims made. Are non-union apprentices not allowed to work?
Anybody can work on a project labor agreement. Non-union apprentices can be considered eligible for any union program at any time. In other words, today, with or without a project labor agreement, anybody can go to a union hiring hall and get on their out-of-work list.
Good evening. I'm Richard Markson. I'm representing the Western Electrical Contractors Association. We're a unilateral program with a training location here on Hazard Way in San Diego. Mr. Lemon is dancing around the question. What he's saying is, if you are a non-union apprentice, you have to disenroll from your school and enroll in one of the union apprenticeship programs in order to work. That's egregious. The building trades have demonstrated that they don't like unilateral apprenticeship programs. They passed Assembly Bill 1431 this year that in statute prohibits unilateral apprenticeship programs for working on school district projects performed under a job order contracting. It's well established that they only want monopoly for union apprenticeship programs. It's disingenuous, it's a falsehood to say that non-union apprentices can work. You're telling that a 4th or 5th year apprentice has to exit his program and try to enter a union program in order to work on one of your school district projects? That's ridiculous.
My name's Jeff Hines. I'm president of Ace Electric. I did a job with the San Diego Unified School District at University City High School. I tried to put one of my apprentices on the job, and I was told by the unions that I could not do that. I could only take apprentices out of the hiring hall, and I was turned down on that. And I also paid, like the other gentleman said, I had to pay. My employees didn't get the benefit of their pension fund. It cost them $12 an hour that they lost on the job. Thank you.
This is an important point, and I think we want to be clear about it. Again, Ricardo Ochoa, attorney for the building trades. The union apprenticeship programs are open to any apprentice that wants to join. Now, it is true that under our project labor agreements, we do require that they come through the joint labor management apprentice programs. And there's some very important reasons for that. So no one is hiding the ball here. First of all, in the San Diego Unified School District project, the APC sued to try to invalidate the requirement that apprentices come from the joint labor management programs, saying that this was a violation of competitive bidding rules. And the court threw out that lawsuit. And the reason they threw out that lawsuit is because they said that the district was entitled to raise the bar and guarantee that there was a quality education being given through the apprenticeship program, and that the district had demonstrated that the union apprenticeship programs were better. And the proof of that is, you have heard that the unions are only about 15% of the construction industry. And yet, the graduates of the state-approved apprenticeship programs, about 90% of the graduates come from the union labor management apprenticeship programs. We are the apprenticeship programs that are actually graduating people. So if you want to take an analogy that you would understand as educators, there's been a lot of news recently about for-profit trade tech colleges that take students' financial aid or federal financial aid dollars, put people through expensive programs, and then don't give them a career at the end of the day. That is what the unilateral apprenticeship programs are. And you have the right, as a district, to say we are going to focus on quality education. And the statistics are borne out by the graduation rates. We are 15% of the industry. We're graduating 90% of the apprentices. 91% of the women and people of color come through the union apprenticeship programs.
Unilateral programs take no money from apprentices. The entirety of the cost of their training and education is paid for by the contractors that indenture the apprentices. We take no money from apprentices, and for him to characterize the men and women that have invested millions of dollars, built training facilities in all the communities in California to train the young men and women who want careers in construction, as the same as the profit motive, folks, is beyond the pale. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never heard someone sink so low as to make that characterization. We are nonprofits. We are solely designed to train young men and women, and they pay nothing. They get the education, they get a 5-year career path where they're being paid during their 5 years of their training. They end up with no student loans. They have no obligation to repay any of the cost of their instruction. That's a horrible mischaracterization.
Just to bring finality to the question, because you just heard it from two of the speakers, one in a more obtuse way answered it because it is embarrassing. One perhaps not completely answered it, the gentleman that represents the unions. No, you cannot work. Now, the rationale is our programs are better, and I just want to use an analogy that you can really use and think about, because they graduate, and they do a great job. These are terrific programs. They happen to have spent 10 years keeping the non-union programs in court from being allowed to open, because monopolies are good things for those that have the monopoly. I understand that. But they lost. Non-union contractors can now, only in the last 15 years, train the apprentices, but the unions do a good job. They graduate most apprentices. What you need to understand, though, is the rationale. Well, we graduate most, therefore ours are superior. Here's an analogy for you. Because only 10% of the graduates in this state graduate from private schools, K through 12, they are an inferior education that those students are getting because they aren't part of the 90% that are graduating from traditional public schools. Just think about that for a minute. All those Catholic high school graduates, all the charter high school graduates, all the homeschool graduates, all the kids that are graduating from Jewish academies, they're inferior because they're not part of the 90% of graduates. That's the logic that one has to swallow in order to understand the discrimination they're trying to sell.
Apprenticeship programs nationally, joint labor management apprenticeship programs nationally are second only to the United States military in the amount of money they spend training people. I think that's important to understand. We spend $1.2 billion annually training apprentices.
So what?
Hi, my name is Patrick Daggett. I'm a journeyman, union worker, but I started this thing off in the ABC program. And I worked 18 months, went to school faithfully. Every time I got my paycheck, every 2 weeks, I noticed that $180 for training out of my paycheck. That $210 for medical out of my paycheck. 18 months I worked, got hurt one Sunday evening, playing around the house, went to the hospital. I was told I had no medical insurance. After 18 months of working, no insurance. They taking it out of my check every week, no insurance. So I went union. Didn't have to pay for my training. Got the best training you could ever get. On the house to be in San Diego County. So I learned a lot in the union, didn't learn nothing in the ABC. They got a nice building and everything, but that don't mean nothing. No hands-on training, you know.
I'm with AGC Apprenticeship Program. I've been there 10 months. I've never got anything taken out of my check. I don't have to pay for school. I've been in this program. I've been contracted out through Ortiz Corporation. I've had steady work. I don't have any problems with AGC. AGC is training me well. I show up every day. I get the training that I need to necessarily perform the work that I need in my community that I work in every day. Thank you.
My name is Francis, and I'm part of Local 206. My husband went to ABC school, and after graduating, after a 5-year period of putting his hard work into that school and time and everything, the minute he graduated, his company dropped him like a bad habit. He wasn't able to find work for a year and had to turn into another trade that was barely getting us by. I joined the union just so that we could have some kind of medical insurance for me and him and our 2 kids. I mean, my son, who was 2 years old because we made barely enough money not to get Medi-Cal, had no insurance until I joined the union. And now, not only do I have medical insurance, vision, dental, we have everything we need. And the union not only helps you, they went out of their way. When my son got sick and I wasn't quite there for getting my insurance, they went out of their way to go for bat for me to be able to get my insurance through the insurance company. And we won. And my son didn't die that day from a black widow bite. So the unions are there for you. ABC are just there for themselves.
Not always. We're going to allow next speaker to speak, and then I'm going to ask if there's another question. I think we pretty much got the feeling. Listen, go ahead.
Thank you. Grossmont Building Trades and Construction, HOC.
Oh, can you give us your name, please?
Thank you, sir. I'm Lynn Olson. I'm the program director of the Masonry Industry Training Association. We are VITA, Southern California Bricklayers Unilateral Apprenticeship Program. We've been around for 18 years. We have journeyed out many valuable apprentices. Our apprentices in training today take their night class at Grossmont HOC Building and Construction Trades location. Our Masonry Lab venue is at West Hills High School in the back. We hosted the statewide skills challenge there for our apprentices who were able to compete and win on the world stage at the World of Concrete in Las Vegas. Our apprentices built the Santee Women's Detention Facility, the new San Diego Rental Car Center, the new coming El Cajon School that's going to be built by ours. Every school from UCSD to Cal State San Marcos, the new Harmony Village area, Oak Crest and Sanitas. I have several of them. The contractors here today. I will tell you, as I am in control of responding to Public Works requests for apprentices and dispatch in my occupation of craft, bricklayer, mason, apprenticeship only, I have sent my apprentices to PLA job, for example, Paris Community Metro, the latest in Doe, the biggest thing in Riverside that's going to save us from traffic on the 215 and the 15. And they are rejected from a PLA website. So I'm an army of one telling you factually what is true, what you may not know, and I think should be held in confidence here, and that you should share thinking forward. What is the #1 occupation in need statewide in California? Long-term Bureau of Labor Statistics, labor market information data projection, 2012 to 2022. Bricklayer Mason is the #1 occupation in need. We're pushing 2016. Takes 4 to 5 years to get my guys out. We don't have enough of them training on the job. My open shop apprentices need this work. They live in San Diego County.
Please give us your name.
My name's Chuck Leek. I'm an estimator for a local non-union electrical contractor. I have worked in the field non-union, I have worked in the field union, and I am just here to tell you that there is no truth to the statement that the unions provide better training. I came in out of the union I took their test. I had a higher score than anybody in the room that came out of the union training program. And as soon as I became a journeyman, I stopped getting hired because I wasn't getting the lower wage that I would have been getting as I don't even remember what it's called, but there's a step from outside the union before you become a journeyman. You get lower pay, and then once you get the higher pay, you get to pay the dues, but you don't get to work anymore. I'm an estimator, a chief estimator, so I know that all these lies they're telling about bidding being open and fair are lies. I speak to contractors who work for the San Diego Unified School District all the time, asking me as a non-union contractor to bid that work. And I tell them no, because we can't, because our apprentices can't get on to work. And they complain about how there's not enough competition and how they can't get fair bids because very limited contractors can bid electrical work in San Diego Unified.
Thank you. What's your name?
David Moreno. I work for Gold Electric, and I'm a fourth-year apprentice for ABC. If our training is not equivalent to the IBEW, then why would one of the guys try to recruit me as soon as I
I saw you come up after I said there'd be 3, so please try to make this short.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Gwen Muller, and I'm the current chair of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for the Grossmont-Cuyamaca Community College District. At our meeting held last Wednesday evening, we were informed that there would be a community workshop today regarding authorizing the district to negotiate a PLA for future projects at the colleges, and that a resolution had already been drafted and would be presented to the board after the workshop. Our committee was quite surprised that we weren't given an opportunity to review the PLA agreement and provide our input prior to it going to the board. It is our fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the bond monies for both measures are spent as reported to the public. We have no idea if a PLA will affect the budgets, time schedules, or the current bid process that is being utilized by the district. Up until now, we've had an excellent response from the local building community in regards to the projects that have been awarded. And they've been completed on time and on budget. So we are confused as to why the district would go in this direction now when the current process has been working very well. As a member of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, we respectfully request that this issue be postponed and brought before our committee at our next regularly scheduled meeting so that we can analyze and provide feedback to the board and district prior to negotiating the PLA. Thank you.
I can't see faces. I did have your card out to ask you to speak.
Thank you very much.
Eventually.
Yeah, thank you.
The Taxpayers Association continues to claim that we're violating the Proposition B hiring information. Can I hear, I'd like to hear more details from why that's not true. You were starting to speak and you only had a few seconds. Can you explain that?
Sure.
With a little more detail, please?
Absolutely. So I have here in my hand resolution number 13-004, which is the resolution that was adopted by this board on August 7th of 2012 that put Proposition B on the ballot. And on the 5th page of this resolution, subsection J makes a commitment. This is the commitment that they pointed out even in their own PowerPoint presentation, that the district will promote fair and open competition for all district construction projects so that all contractors and workers, whether union or non-union, are treated equally in the bidding and awarding of district construction contracts. So to be clear, the commitment that this board made is that in the bidding and the awarding of district construction contracts, that contractors would have the opportunity to bid that work, whether they were union or non-union, and that workers would be able to work that job whether they were union or non-union. Now, in January 1st of 2012, actually before this was, or actually in 2011, effective January 1st, 2012. So before this resolution was adopted, the legislature passed Senate Bill 922, which was a bill that was written at the behest of the building trades because we wanted to codify the requirements of fair and open competition into state law, into the bidding process. And Senate Bill 922, Public Contract Code Section 2500, specifically says in subsection A, a public entity may use, enter into, or require contractors to enter into a project labor agreement for a construction project only if the agreement includes all of the following taxpayer protection provisions. The first requirement, that the agreement, so the PLA that you would be voting on to negotiate, must prohibit discrimination based on membership in a labor organization in hiring and dispatching of workers for the project. So there is the part about not discriminating against workers on the basis of union or non-union. As to the second part of the promise that you made, not discriminating against contractors on the basis of their union status. Subsection 2 of Section 2500A. The agreement must permit all qualified contractors and subcontractors to bid for and be awarded work on the project without regard to whether they are otherwise parties to a collective bargaining agreement. So fair and open competition is state law. It is required to be in any project labor agreement that you negotiate. Thank you.
Are you responding to this question?
No, I was going to speak on the material presented by the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee representative, if I may, or
Gwen, go ahead if you're responding to her comment.
Yes, my name is Nick Marinovich. I'm the chair of the Sweetwater Bond Oversight Committee, and I've been involved in bond oversight probably now for 6-7 years. I was also grand jury witness on the Sweetwater corruption trial case. The other night, we had a special meeting as a result of a board of trustees meeting in the Sweetwater Union High School District. And our bond oversight committee was not consulted significantly or really at all before the board entered into a recommendation to negotiate a PLA for the school district. I'm here not to be a pro or con PLA, I'm pro process. You had a bond oversight process that's set up in state law for the very reason you have these kind of decisions should be vetted with the public, with the kind of input that is really necessary for such an important decision. And I just offer you two questions, and it's sort of like, what is the value added of a PLA? And I ask you, before you reach a decision like this has to be somewhat of a technical question you need to put in your mind. What are the current project delivery issues that would warrant PLAs when you have other potential avenues such as design build, promising options for savings? And secondly, is there really a problem with hiring out-of-town labor or not? I mean, what does the data say? What are the issues that would warrant the need for a PLA? What are there apprentices training problems that you can identify statistically in your bond program today? Just in closing, I want to tell you what our Bond Oversight Committee adopted. We adopted 2 recommendations to the Board of Trustees. In the interest of public trust and transparency, the CBO requests a 4-month moratorium on the resolution to assess data on the pros and cons of project labor agreements. In addition, the CBOC would like to assess and recommend better construction delivery methods, pre-qualification requirements for the contractor pool inspection process, and methods of project management would address the totality of the problems. In other words, you've got to look at this as a system, not as a PLA solving the system's problems. Secondly, the CBOC authorized a letter that we sent a letter to the Board of Trustees communicating our wishes and that if we may consider further actions in the future. In closing, I just want to say Citizens Bond Oversight was set up for the very kind of situations we have this room filled for. Get people who care about how that money is spent and figure out whether this is the right decision or not, and inform the public about it, and not sort of shove it and run it through quickly. That's really what I'm advocating here for. Thank you.
Did we get your name?
Nick Marinovich.
Okay, we're gonna let the next two speakers speak, and then we've run out of time, we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm Jim Summers again, but I just wanted to answer the question about the discrimination for the workers, union versus non-union. And they're right, all the PLAs allow open shop contractors to bid the work. I disagree that we could bid competitively because we have to put money in our bids to pay our current health and pension benefits to our workers and pay them to the union, because the PLAs require the unions to get that money that our workers never get. So, yeah, there's language in there that says I can bid the job, but is the language and is the process really allow us to bid it competitively? I don't think so. And more important than that are the workers. If I bid a job with a PLA and I'm working on jobs right down here at Grossmont High School District, and I do my own concrete work. So if I'm doing concrete work down there and I come up here to do concrete work on one of your jobs, over here my guy's getting hours and he's getting his health benefits. If I send him up here, he's not getting hours over there to pay for his health benefits on that job. He's not going to get them here, so I got to take them from somewhere, which is really taking it from the taxpayers of your district, so that he can keep his benefits, because while he's working on this job, he's not earning anything. It's just going to go in the black hole.
Thank you.
So it is not, to answer your question, it is not fair and open competition the way the current PLAs are written.
To your question, Richard Marcuson for Western Electrical Contractors Association. I gave the Chancellor a list of the various unilateral programs, the non-union programs that are approved by the state of California to indenture and dispatch apprentices in San Diego County. I would encourage this board not to rely upon the attorney for the building trades to determine whether a PLA that prohibits non-union apprentices from being dispatched is a violation of Public Contracts Code 2500 or not. I think your council should determine that. But I will share with you the legal counsel for Vacaville Unified School District in a similar discussion about 3 months ago advised his board that he believed that a project labor agreement that has a provision that restricts apprentices to only union JATC apprentices did in fact violate Public Contract Code 2500 because it discriminates solely based upon membership or non-membership in a union. And this is the kind of question that your legal counsel needs to answer. Not taking my word for it, not taking the building trades attorney's word for it, but your legal counsel whose obligation is to represent you and not make points on behalf or opposed to other decisions.
Can I just, the trustee's question, can I just respond
Yes.
to the question too?
I wasn't sure if you were good. Did you have another question?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Real briefly, Scott Barnett again. The question of does it restrict competition? Is there allowed competition? As I stated before, and I can get you the contractors and figures on this, AGC board members and members have bid and won contracts in San Diego Unified. Just recently, a Pershing High School contract was done by a non-union contractor. Why people win or lose contracts at various reasons, but the facts are non-union contractors do bid and win those contracts. Also, you referred to the Taxpayers Association's concern that they would raise. The only time the Taxpayers Association ever did a study on PLAs was when I was there and never took a position, and they have never done a subsequent independent study themselves, and now are opposed. And so in fact, please read the studies that we did at the taxpayers 10 years ago, the study that the school district did, and look at those facts. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn this workshop. Thank you for being here. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and begin the regular board meeting.